my agenda. How late are we
Pick it
on?
up. Sure.
4:30.
Okay, we're going to resume
Okay.
where we left off. Brian?
Go back to Sheriff's Department. Just to recap, we're talking about 4 jailers, 2 merit deputies, 1 courthouse bailiff, and 1 communications officer.
Say again, Brian, I'm sorry.
4 jailers, 2 merit deputies,
Yep.
1 courthouse bailiff, and 1 communications officer for 8 positions. The notes that I made in our discussion earlier was that a couple of things that could work, according to the sheriff and the major, was combine 2 part-time dispatchers into 1 full-time dispatcher, communications officer, and upgrade the part-time courthouse bailiff at the 111 building to a full-time. So that shares some of the costs across a couple of line items there. But that is a start to beginning those discussions. That leaves us with a proposal for 2 merit deputies and 4 jail officers.
What about the dispatcher?
That was already included.
Okay.
That was included, but I said if they have 2 part-times now that we could combine into a full-time,
Okay.
it may need a little bit more to bring it up to full salary, but part of that could be covered, most of it.
Mr. President, we're going to have increases from the prosecutor and from the PD department. I would recommend that we go through everybody else's budget, and at the end we take a look at those positions that we're going to have to make a decision in terms of filling. That way we can do some of the priority work that we probably need to have before we make that final determination. I do have, and I don't know why I don't have it, but line item 3190, other professional services. It's increasing from 566,000 to 850. Do you know right off the top of your head what that's for? Is it for psych services or examination?
That's the contract services with the inmate health care, okay. Getting in the appropriate counseling and mental health associated with that.
Is this based on a projection on your part?
No, from
the
a couple of bids that we're entertaining and looking into is what they're going to be charging for that type of coverage and additional coverage that is going to make the inmate health care better and also additional coverage.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, does everybody agree with the recommendation of Councilman Williams that we move on and hear the rest of the story?
Yes.
From the other departments?
Yes.
I don't have any other notes on the balance of the budget.
Okay. We'll go to county jail.
Looks good as is at this point.
We didn't have any changes when we met.
Okay. Community corrections.
That budget pretty much is already set for us, but Jason, you want to go through, are you going to pay for food?
Good afternoon. Just a couple of things that I thought were important to note before we kind of move forward with our budget. I kind of wanted to give you just a real quick snapshot of where we were just 2 years ago during budget hearings as to where we are now. 2 years ago, we had 343 people in total participants in our program. Today, we have 996. That's an increase of 190%. That we're dealing with total participant population. We had an average daily population work release of 55, and we're now about an average of 120. Most days are in the 130 to 140 range, so you're looking at 118 to 120% increase in that. So we've seen a huge growth in that. You know, a year ago, when we became a line item for the county for the first time, I always try to look for solutions to problems, and one of the problems that we were facing was, you know, an overcrowded jail with some room that we had at community corrections, how we could develop a program to do that. And I'm pretty proud to stand up here today to say that as of today, we've transferred 349 eligible inmates to community corrections in a year out of the jail, and we've collected in that program back fees for the county as of today $144,536.85. That's been brought back into the county through that program. Almost 50,000 of that to back court costs, about 85,000 in back community corrections fees, and just a little over $9,600 back to probation. So we tried to develop a program that was had a lot of prongs to it to help resolve some problems, and we've done that on top of getting people back integrated into being productive members of society, working, getting the help that they need, the education they need, and the jobs they need to get out of the situations that they are. So I just wanted to throw that out as just a little bit of where we were and where we are today. I am asking for 2 full-time corrections officers, the elimination of 4 part-time corrections officers, and the addition of 2 full-time. We have a difficult time getting reliable part-time help, and it just makes a lot more sense to have 2 full-time people that are reliable, that we can use in a kind of power shift situation. So eliminating those, asking for a part-time maintenance person for our facility. That apparently at one point in time had a full-time maintenance person that was relinquished by the prior administration, but we have a strong need to have a part-time presence for maintenance. We are probably averaging 6 to 10 hours a week that we have somebody from the maintenance department at our facility, and that number easily could be easily fill the 29 hours a week with the work that needs done around that facility. We can reduce the overtime budget from 20,000 to 10,000. I'm happy to entertain any questions from there.
Okay, so you're reducing it to 10,000, but we've used, what, 5,000 so far, and you're getting 2 new employees and another maintenance person. Are you going to need $10,000 in overtime?
That's why we reduced it. I mean, I'd like to think that we won't need all 10,000 of it. We're probably on pace. I just checked. We're at about $5,600 as of today. So we're probably going to push, you know, maybe 7,000 for this upcoming year. If our numbers continue to increase at the rate that they are, if we get up to 140 people in our facility, I could see the need for some overtime. So that's why I would ask for that. I could live with 7,500 if that makes you feel better.
Sure.
It's all about how we feel.
That's right. I was going to pass out donuts instead of paper.
I'll beat you
I
to it.
pass.
Legal
Can't get me with a donut.
and health and medical are
Yeah.
both new items.
Yes.
Yeah.
And again,
The health is we started contracting with Quality Correctional Care to provide a 2 to 4 hours a week of medical services in our facility, helping to distribute medications, establish policies for our staff, and then help the participants with their medications. We obviously have a lot to distribute, and that's a unfair task to ask our staff to do that without any sort of professional training and guidance. So we've contracted with that agency. The professional services is for Lexipol and some of the other professional counsel that we have for developing policies and procedures, best practices for our facility, and the implementation of a new policy manual that's backed by law and best practices and updated every year.
Is that professional services or legal?
Legal. The $100,000 for professional services is our GPS monitoring. So obviously, the more people we have on our program, the more that we've had to increase that from last year.
Again, you mentioned this other professional services. What is that?
GPS
Some
monitoring.
type of counseling or something?
No, GPS monitoring for the inmates.
That's what?
GPS monitoring, their ankle bracelets. That tells us where they are. So we have to pay for that.
For the release people.
The ankle bracelets, you mean, or something like that?
Yes, yep.
Jason, could you tell us about travel and mileage?
That basically is it for training for our staff. So we try to do as much professional development as we can. We try to stay absolutely within the state. We try to reduce the number of overnight trainings that we offer, but from time to time we have to do that. But
Who monitors these ankle bracelets and these,
our surveillance officers.
I can't hear you.
Our surveillance officers, we do.
Your own people monitor this.
Yes.
So
We have to pay the company that provides the service, and then
how much is that?
it's that 100,000.
We pay this company 100,000?
So they're providing the technology.
Right. I mean, they provide the unit, the technology, any repairs on it, the staff that administers it. They provide all that. And they also provide our drug screen services for us.
Okay, I don't want to be nitpicking. We do
No.
have less than $1 million, but, this travel and training, we've only spent 101,000 so far this year. We budgeted 3,000, and now you're wanting 5,000. And you're getting 2 additional corrections officers, and 1 part-time or additional for maintenance, and an increase to 5,000. I mean, is there something big or?
From the 3,000 to 5,000?
Right,
Yes.
and you've not spent very much this year,
So
and
we have 2 big trainings that are coming up that aren't, that haven't been spent yet. We have our fall conference that is coming up, which will eat a good portion of that. And then I think we have a couple of smaller trainings. So we'll be close to that 5,000, or I'm sorry, the 3,000 from there. And I would want to increase the amount of training that we can provide for our staff.
How many staff do you have?
51.
50, thank you.
So what's the answer to all this crime in the community? We're an all-American city, come to Lafayette. What's the answer?
State grant. How does that get recorded?
If I had that, I wouldn't stand in front
I
of you.
know.
You could bottle
Because
that.
this one's different.
You could bottle that
I
and sell
could,
it.
I'd write a book.
Last year. Right.
It's just frustrating.
So does this have
It
a
is.
net zero effect? But we're still spending about 9,000.
I think that was the sheriff's point a few minutes ago.
It's just some of it. Is that some of it?
Don't say anything. Don't say that.
But that's for the people.
Any other questions? I don't have any.
Anybody got more questions for Jason?
Councilwoman, if you wanted to reduce that, I'm happy to reduce that a little bit if you want, the training.
Jason, the increase in the ankle bracelet monitoring, the tracking group expenses, is that affiliated with a certain segment of your
So
folks?
over, I think we have 90% of our population that is on GPS monitoring.
So is there not adequate funding then out of the Community Corrections Fund or the grant to handle it? It looks like this is being moved from your other funds
Right,
onto
so
the
we're
general fund for
under-
next year.
Our DOC funding is the same as it was fiscal year 2014-15. So we have a reduced number of DOC funds that we're trying to deal with. So we're offsetting, we need to offset those costs.
Any Any other questions for the community?
Well,
Go
because
ahead.
this, maybe, this is a dumb question, I don't know exactly what goes on down there, thank goodness. But ankle bracelets, I thought that we were moving expenses into the general fund for community corrections from the overcrowding of the jail. And so if we're moving people from the jail to over there, why do they need ankle bracelets?
They still work.
The people in the jail? The ones,
Yeah,
level
they're
6?
community correction eligible. They're not, once they transfer, they're community
so
corrections
they do not
participants.
stay there all the time? Because that
No.
was my
No, no,
understanding,
no.
that it was just the overcrowding, that instead of
No,
staying in the jail, they were going to stay
They're
at
eligible
your...
for community corrections. We move them to
Okay,
community
I knew
corrections.
they were eligible to
Yeah.
start with, but I thought they were ones who did not want to
No.
participate.
No.
But, okay.
No, so they're out working and they have to go to appointments and that kind of stuff, so they have to be GPS monitored.
And then you have to pay to be in that program, right?
It's a voluntary program, but yes.
But-
The participants.
Is
have
any
a
money
fee.
going to the general fund for the people that are, we're paying for the expenses out of the general fund? Are they getting any revenues
I mean, I've recouped $144,000. I've
to
gone
the
back
general fund?
It's gone to back fees. I don't know if it's gone to the general where it goes from there, but we write a check to court costs.
But if we're paying the expenses for these people out of the general fund, if they have any user fees, that should be going back to the general fund, and I don't think it is.
Not aware, I think.
Because we don't have a line in the general fund for revenues that we're seeing
That's what it
anything
was
like
set
that.
up, a year ago. This is how the program was
But we
set
can't
up.
be taking, the general fund can't be paying the expenses and then the user fees going to your community corrections fund. That's not how we can
So
operate.
who handles those fees
Right.
then back to us?
Well, they would be turning in the money, or whoever's collecting it, whether that's the
To who?
clerk
So
or,
it goes to Krista, I believe.
yeah, and she would be turning it back into
Krista,
us, and I
the
don't,
clerk's office. And then I think they distribute it from there.
So can clerk,
we get money from her once a month, and she just tells us where it all goes, and
so can Krista clarify?
Yeah, where is it?
Where's Krista?
she's back here. Her term ended at noon.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
If we are paying for expenses for community corrections people who are on work release,
Okay.
we need to get the money back into the fund who's paying the expenses. So that should be going back to the general fund, and I don't think we are having any revenues coming back to the general fund.
The only money I'm aware of for community corrections is if someone owes court costs, those are paid before they're transferred from the jail to the community corrections, and those are processed as normal court costs. Or if there's something else.
That's what it was set up to cover.
But the
back.
people who are on work release that we are paying the expenses, if they're paying fees to be in the work release program, that should be coming back to the general fund.
And believe it or not, that's one of the fees I don't collect and I don't touch, so I don't have any answers for you beyond if they owe court costs.
So who collects it?
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
Does it not go to your office? I can get back to you. I thought it went there.
But you know the number's 140 something.
I know that that's the breakdown of the agencies or the departments that have been repaid but through this program. And the amount of money that we've recollected that has been owed to the county.
But I wonder if it's going into the wrong bucket, maybe. I don't know. I'm not saying it did, but
Is it all of
I don't know of any line that we have in the general fund that we are posting any funds to on a regular basis from community corrections.
And none of those, I mean, how do you then, though, designate it only to this and not the grant? Meaning, the grant's paying for things that make this whole program?
No.
Not at all?
No,
Nothing.
this is completely from our line item from last year.
Okay.
This is the purpose of becoming a line item
Right.
for us.
Okay.
And I will pull up a financial statement. I mean, there are 2 pages. I don't commit it all to memory, but and
If it
verify
needs to
that.
go back to
Put
the
this
general
into
fund,
the
it gets
user fees
distributed from there. I don't know
Good
what
catch. The second question is if it's not going to general fund, where the heck is it going?
Right.
Well, I know it's going to these departments, how it gets there, I don't know, but I know it's going there.
Right.
Maybe you could find out and get back to us tomorrow,
Yeah,
since
yeah.
we'll be continuing tomorrow.
That's a big number.
Yeah, that's a big number.
Yeah, so it's gonna be in
It'd have to be.
But if that needs to get reworked, then that's an easy rework to do, get
Thank you.
distributed from there.
More questions for Jason? All right.
Krista, back up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Krista?
Krista, you're up.
We met with Krista about the clerk's budget and confirmed that she was the only one that needed to be there.
For 111 days.
Krista, just cut into the chase, correct us if we're wrong. We agreed to reduce the part-time from 45 to 30.
Yes.
And that funds 2 people in the court offices, and we agreed the office supplies could be reduced from 9,000 to 6,000, 2110.
Correct.
And Vicki, if you had other changes. While
Do you
we're
want
talking,
the personnel reductions now?
yeah, go ahead if you would, go walk through those.
Okay. There are currently 4 vacant positions that were funded and have not been filled. One of them is from the 4D reimbursement fund. It does not get enough funding now to pay for that, so I'm planning to not have that funded going forward and just moving that money into part-time. There are two Comet 3 positions that have been vacant for over a year and could be eliminated now.
And they were in your request,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Last year at this time, there were vacant positions already happening because of Odyssey and e-filing, but we agreed with the department that we wouldn't eliminate those positions yet until we had a year full under our belt, which we do now. So
And I actually eliminated 2, if not 3 positions last year.
Correct.
Which one of these are you talking about?
So,
The bottom one, I assume?
The very bottom one, the main office deputy, the Comet 3. And the very last high-volume clerk, Comet 3, that's vacant.
Okay.
And I have one other position that's vacant currently, but in looking at the lack of experience that either candidate would have who's running for clerk this year, I think it's wise to fill that position and have some time for training before I leave.
And Krista, which one is that?
That's the main office
Deputy clerk?
supervisor. It's toward the top.
Right, the last item.
The case file payment supervisor.
Is that the last one on your salary schedule here, Krista?
No, it's actually number 3 under me, Diana, and then the supervisor.
Thank you. That had been, yeah,
Yes.
okay.
And you're
think
leaving
so.
enough in there, since you're leaving office, there's enough for them to get, I'm not sure what you need, new envelopes, new letterhead, that's going to be
Yes.
sufficient, and whether, I don't know, it'd be printed forms or office supplies, but that's, okay.
Right, printed forms isn't changing because of anticipating that. I actually just ordered some new file markers for some courts that were using electronic ones, and they don't have my signature, they're just clerk with no designation, so.
With that Comet 4 that you just described, that's been vacant all of this year. It's
It
been
has
vacant
been.
for well over a year.
Yes.
Okay,
It has been.
Yeah.
But for the operations of the office, I think it's important to fill that before I leave.
I don't think I want to touch health insurance paying those two. So, just leave those alone as far as not health insurance stuff. With Jennifer's, I reflected Kim, because she had the family waiting on the permanent basis.
You still,
I think I'm okay.
okay. Any more questions for the county clerk? Thanks, Krista.
Thank you.
thanks, Krista.
Prosecutor.
Hey, good afternoon.
Hello.
I want to thank Councilmember Winger and Councilwoman Verge for all their help. We've met several times to discuss the staffing need, and it's kind of like you're getting the same message from every department that's in the justice system. We're literally stretched way too thin, and we need more resources. I sent a document to you electronically. I hope you were able to look at it. I've requested 5 new positions, and I hope you would agree that the data in there shows the need. My attorneys work on average 6.5 days per week, 52 weeks a year, for 5 days pay. They're averaging anywhere from 500 to 600 hours of unpaid overtime a year. That is not sustainable. I gave you information on the number of cases in the increase over the last 4 years. Certain courts it's doubled, certain cases have tripled. So we desperately need those 5 positions. And I'll answer any questions you have. I think we laid it out pretty good in that 35-page document for you.
Bob, my understanding is that the 2290-503 does not include the new positions. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct.
But have we gotten, we talked yesterday, we've got them slotted, we can add those in?
I don't have them slotted because I don't know what sort of category, since he has a little wide range of where he wants to put them. I can do that fairly quickly. I have not done that yet.
But that does need to be known that those aren't in here yet. And have you assigned, have you prepared what a salary statement would be for those 5?
No, but I could. I'd have it to you tomorrow.
Well, yeah, we need to know what a bottom line is, yeah.
Do that tonight.
This opens up there's a lot of issues here, but one of the things that Pat's department does is they do have their salaried employees clock in and clock out, else we couldn't have this data. And that's by their choice, by Pat's choice. And so when he first came to us without the document that you got sent to you and said, I need new positions, we said, that sounds great, but based on what? So I commend the office for putting the amount of time and effort they did, but having those hours in there. And what's different about the prosecutor, for those that aren't living with this every day, is they are not limited on caseloads by the state commission. There is no prosecutor commission. So when it comes to attorneys, we have currently 16 full-time attorneys doing casework in the 7 courts for Pat's office, and we have 4 full-time and 18 regular part-times in the prosecutor's office in those same courts. So when you look at, and that's because they're caseload limited. So that right there says that it makes sense. The numbers that Pat, I see in the document make sense to me, that you've got less attorneys doing more cases, which nets in more hours. We don't have comparative hours numbers from the PD's office. They don't clock in and clock out the same. We don't have a county policy for salaried employees. But on the first cut, that makes sense to me, that since they are limited, we've got more heads over there in the PD office than we do in Pat's office on prosecutor. You might talk a little bit on the 4, 5, and 6, just the high volumes.
Okay.
Just what the dynamic is there.
Well, obviously 4, 5, and 6 has increased dramatically. In Judge Siemens' court and Superior Court 4, we've gone from like barely 1,000 cases 2 years ago to doubling. We're going to hit 2,000 cases this year alone. I have 2 prosecutors assigned to that, so their caseload's 1,000. A full-time public defender is capped at about 300, 350. So if you did apples to apples and I had the same caseload caps as the public defenders, I would need an additional 12 attorneys for the lower courts. So The request for 5 is what I desperately need. So the criminal cases continue to increase. Our drug cases, just as staggering. We've gone 2.5 times the number in 4.5 years. We're over 2,452 drug cases now. In 2013, we were barely 1,000 with no additional staffing. No more deputy prosecutors in that court. Our crimes against children has tripled in 6 years. I have one felony deputy attorney doing that. One of these slots will give us a second one just to do those crimes to protect children and crimes of violence against women. There's no good news here. A lot of the stuff we do behind the scenes is assist police departments. That's search warrants, subpoenas, like in the middle of the night, during the day, in real time. It could require an attorney, it could take a minimum of 2 hours, it could take 10 hours to get that done. We're going to almost double that in 3 years, those 4 felony intake deputies, doing double the work, no more people. You heard Judge McVeigh here talking about her increases. Everybody you hear today talk about the increase in their workload, their need for a Superior Court, need for the Superior Court 7, the need for more people in the courts, the need for more public defenders. Unfortunately, I'm the cause of that, my department, because we are handling all those reports and we are prosecuting them. The number of cases we receive from law enforcement continues to increase every year. Not every case gets filed right away. It needs a lot of work on it. That's increased dramatically. We are going to hit over 8,500 actually 8,760 cases this year alone to review. That's an increase of 2,200 in 4 years. In 4 years, I've gotten only 2 more attorneys to handle all of these issues. So we see an increase in the cases needed to be reviewed by police. We see the need for more pre-filing work, subpoenas, investigative work, search warrants. Our drug cases have doubled 2.5 times. Judge Zeman's court has doubled. It's all my department, and I'm not added. 12 years ago when I became your prosecutor, you know what your full-time employee staffing was for our office? 58. You know what is it today? 62. I've added 4 in 12 years, full-time employees. I've never come before you and asked for something I desperately didn't need. Because we all work well together, and this is a point where I need 5. I actually need about 8, but I know you can't fund 8. So I don't want to put you in a position in that. But there's no doubt about this. This is as you look at these numbers and these charts, we need it. If not, we can't keep up. And unlike everybody else, we can't control the number of cases we get. The police make the arrest, we get the case. On a daily volume, just to give you a thumbnail, I didn't put this in the data. We normally would receive 4 years ago, and the sheriff can back me up on this, Major Williams and Tom Lehman. We may get 10 prisoners in a 24-hour cycle that needed process. We're averaging now, in a weekly, 32. This week alone, we had 42 or 47 in one day, which requires all 9 lawyers in my office to come in at 7:30 in the morning and review 42 arrest reports to determine file, cut them loose, ask for more time from the judge. And they have to make that decision by about 11 or 12 in order for the clerk's office to process the information, in order to get to the magistrate to look at it so he can go to the jail and give the jail time to bring up those 30 or 40 inmates from the cells to see the magistrate. We are past the point of triage here. So you have a question? I'm sorry, did I answer your question?
Yeah, and then also you are, while you're here, this does not, Kathy, to your point, the new positions is one thing as far as the clunkiness of the process. The
Correct.
reclassifications is very clunky. We, Pat has already brought to the Personnel Committee the establishment of a new position called Division Chief.
Correct.
That was also in this deck. But because that is a horse of a different color, we're not proposing, Pat's not proposing those numbers to be folded into budget numbers until the Personnel Committee reviews, because it is a major reclassification.
That would be a new class, and that was my understanding. I heard your conversation earlier before lunch and after lunch, but I did not put them, it's in my packet, just to give you a FYI. But we're in the process with, down in Annapolis to look at that job description and get the projected budget, or what they feel is a fair market wage for that.
So I know we're running up, but we've been meeting on this a number of times, and just a number of conversations, I should say, and just there's a lot been flying here at the end. But if obviously we need numbers now, but this is kind of hot off the press. So what we need is the net effect on full-time employee line item for the requested positions, but not the division chief increment. But then when we have our conversation at the end about added positions, we need to just have in mind that there's some potential that personnel and the commissioners would approve the division chief positions.
And I'd like to add, at the state level, our association's asking this year, as part of the legislative budget, that the top 10 counties, largest counties in the state, get another full-time paid chief deputy prosecutor by the state of Indiana. If we get that, that would take, I wouldn't need those other division chiefs, Councilman Winger. That would remove one from our budget, because every county is like us in the top 8, 10 counties in the state. We're being, the courts are overwhelmed. The prosecutors need additional staffing. The state gives really nothing to the counties, zero, for the operation of a prosecutor's office. It's all funded by local taxpayers, correct? They give you 40% back, but that's an issue.
Do we prosecute these people to the extent of the law? I mean,
based upon the facts and the evidence,
what could be a deterrence to come to our community? I mean, just prosecute them, throw the book at them?
That's a great question. It's maybe a little bit outside the area of a budget, but the best thing your community can do is you have a strong economy, great schools, and strong justice system. Those are the 3 best things you could ever do for any community to have a reduced crime. And, you know, the reality is this is one of the safest counties to live in. That's not the issue. The issue is we're growing. We're no longer sleepy Mayberry. We're a community of 200,000 plus people. And for our size, even with the issues we have here today, it's not comparable to other counties. They are in far, not that it helps us, they're in far worse conditions than we are. For those of you on the council that go to these other counties, you've seen what they're going through. Bob, I know you talk to other auditors around the state in these larger communities, and I mean, they would probably love to have our issue.
Yeah.
So, but thank you, yeah. We base all of our case based on the evidence and the facts.
Any more questions, Roland?
No.
Just we need numbers.
Yeah, obviously.
Numbers.
Yeah.
I'll get those for you. Thank you so much.
So that's fine.
4D.
4D?
4D? 4D, we do recover 66 2/3% of that from the federal government through the 4D reimbursement program.
And we didn't have any changes there.
None.
Can we meet with you as soon as we're done here?
Yes.
You're gonna be here? Okay.
Ancillary?
Ancillary, yeah.
Good.
Ancillary.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Ancillary court?
Judge Person, as I mentioned earlier, is in court today and unable to be here. For ancillary, you'll notice what looks like a big change is in the full-time line item. This year we had budgeted $49,000 for full-time for ancillary, which is primarily the translator position, I believe. But you see the request is 93,000. The net budget for that line item, those 81,000, earlier this year, we added the full-time court reporter position that splits time between ancillary and Judge Zeman's court in 4. So this new number of 93 reflects that now the 2 positions, one being the translator and the other being the shared position. Other than that, you can see everything else has stayed flat for ancillary, and we have no, and they're on schedule for that spending, so we had no other changes. So there's, in effect, no changes to the request for ancillary. Now, the one thing, though, the 75,000 for pauper transcripts should be in Superior 2. We moved that last year, and on the original spreadsheet I got, Bob, it was misreported in 2 as like 200-some thousand. I think it was just a transcription error. But that 75 is being managed by Judge Meyer out of 2.
We got, this is the request we got from Judge Meyer, and he put it back into ancillary. So that's why we put it in there.
What do you mean he put it back in
You see where my cursor is right there? The
Yeah.
75,000. He added it. I mean, they typed that in, so he didn't want it, I guess.
And that's not his, it's not his understanding. What they typed in, I don't know.
Yeah,
But when
I
we
mean,
talked to
this
him
is
about
what
it,
Judge Meyer sent in and signed. So I mean, we didn't know what he's requested it out of ancillary. That's not really his department, but I know it's got to be somewhere, but, so we put it there where we got a request.
Yeah, so if we look at 2, yeah, I don't know about the numbers, but I know management-wise, he's controlling it, and so the number needs to be 75. My understanding was that it was going to be in 2 because of that. It's just a bookkeeping thing. Can we just get with them and straighten that out?
Yeah, and it's not going to change the total at all, but
Either way, it's not going to change the total.
we just put it where he
Correct.
requested it.
I'll make a note. Let's get that resolved then tonight. But it's being managed by Judge Meyer. It makes sense to have a line item in his budget for it rather than every year having to go back and forth between he and Judge Person, I think.
Public defender. Find a home for that yet?
No, well, I'm going to leave it for now, and then if they get the 2 together and see where they want it, I can move it if we need to, or.
Okay. Amy here, public defender.
Yes. You mean Robert here?
Public defender.
I don't know why we didn't have it, why would we want to? I mean, it seemed like ancillary, just kind of like, it didn't really fit, so that's, I don't care. No, don't do
You
that.
just want me to go through the budget?
Yeah, the primary thing that we've worked with Amy and her team is in the staffing as well. We revised what was originally submitted pretty significantly, and rather than go through what she submitted and then what we've landed on, it probably is easiest just to say what we landed on.
Right.
And we landed on the addition of 1 full-time PD, 2 regular part-time PDs, and then the move of a part-time secretary to full-time. At the break, what? Yeah. So, regular part-time, that'd be part-time with benefits, and those would be focused primarily on the conflict cases.
The reason we changed our request is when I looked at staffing in April, because we used to submit it by May 1st, I looked at the data that we had on the cases that went out the door, And then Roland emailed me Friday night, so I decided to go back in because I had 2 full quarters worth of data and went through our commission sheets and realized what's happening, at least in the last couple of quarters, is there's so much conflict that our staff is starting to take less cases, and the conflict attorneys are starting to get, this conflict side's starting to increase. So we decided to do exactly what we did when we developed the conflict division, is we moved people from our staff over into the conflict division so we didn't have to hire more people. And that's what we plan to do by trying to move 3 of our part-timers over to the conflict side, and then we had asked for 5.
So what, Bob, and we talked at the break, that there'll be a reduction in this full-time employee line, there'll be an increase in the full-time employee, a reduction in the part-time benefit eligible line, correct, Amy?
Correct.
And we're working those dollars out. Now, the reduction will be less than the addition for the DPAs that Pat just discussed. Okay, so the net to this is going to be not in our favor, but at least there'll be some offset there. The other parts of the line items, we did not have changes. You can see in professional services, we've already spent 200 through the middle part of the year, and we're at 275. We've got the other fund for that, but we're hitting it pretty hard too. But we've got revenue continuing to come in. But that's about the best we can do.
My preference really is to use our 1200 account as much as possible instead of drawing off of the general county, and so I try to minimize the amount we ask for and then just try to build from.
One thing that Judge Williams mentioned when he came in this morning was when he sees pauper counsel, it is predominantly for his court, appellate appeals cases and the use, and we've got, he mentioned Bruce Graham, who's a regular part-time that's currently in the PD office, talking with Amy and Rob here at the break. They're going to work to try to utilize that existing position more effectively or more broadly in where the commission has room for him to continue to do more appellate cases. So the real focus of these ads is indeed the conflict cases. And we'll try to maximize the productivity of what we've got in the existing position before we go adding appellate PD.
I think that would be the best way to do
Yeah.
it. And I also think you have to look at the cost of what they're paying for appeals versus what a full-time position or a part-time position costs to make sure that it's cost-effective to go that way.
So, Bob, what do you need?
Well, what am I missing? I took out, in the full-time line, I took out the 12.7.
Okay, so you're talking about your number, your
Yeah, just because I haven't
566
added
number?
anything. All I've taken is away.
Okay.
Do you want me to give you my sheet?
Is that different than what, well, because I took away Jan's, and then there was
Correct.
3 of them at 39, 34, that little increment on the full-time. And then the part-time, I took away 3 on your new positions.
You took away my new position, or you took away the supervisor position?
Well, both. The supervisor were in the
Would have appeared
full-time
up there.
line, and that was 3 of them at 39, 34.
Yep.
And then I took away 3 new positions that you had requested at 47, 3,
The 3 new
430.
part-time. Then
And
the
now-
other thing that you should know is that last year when we did the chins, the council approved us for 8 positions. We hired 6. Judge Graham contracted with legal aid for number 7, and she is paying for that out of her budget. We transferred $100,000 to her last year. We hired Steve Tippecanoe, who just started. So when you look at my budget, there is an extra, it says there's 2 vacant chins. It says there's a new 2018, that's Steve Tippecanoe, and there's a vacant new 2018 for 437, and we do not need to fill that position. So I think there's one of 2 ways this should either occur. I do not know if Judge Graham has put legal aid money in her budget for next year, or she has not. So if she has not, what I would suggest is we transfer that money to her budget. If she has, then that's an extra $47,000 that certainly we don't need. And I just don't have the answer to that question.
It's basically the 8th position that we had agreed to last year. We just need to make sure we're not trying to fund it out of 2 places.
It is not in Superior 3.
It doesn't look like it, no.
She kept 50 in pauper attorney for conflicts and on some ongoing cases that still aren't finished. But the position is,
For the contract with legal aid, she doesn't have that. I mean, we can do it one of 2 ways. Either we could pay for that contract or we can transfer that money
Let's just leave
to
it
the
with
judge.
you. I mean,
I
is that right?
think, I think the judge assumed it was still in your budget, so it is not in hers.
Okay, because she paid for the contract last year. I think she paid it out of the $100,000 that we gave her. Because we were given $100,000 in pauper attorney money that we did not need.
No matter where we put it, can we mark that line item in the salary statement, legal aid, so it's a good reminder
Correct.
to us?
So we know.
Just tag it.
Yeah.
Does it matter?
Make sure we
You
don't
guys
leave it
care
out.
whether we pay it out of 3 or this?
I don't have any feelings on it.
Since all the other chins there, I mean, it's kind of,
Yeah,
kind
it
of
may
in the
be
middle.
cleaner that it's there, but
why don't we leave it there
with
in Amy's?
yeah.
So you're going to leave it in my budget, so
Yeah.
we'll pay the contract and do the contract?
Yeah.
That's fine.
Bob, can you go back to the full-time employee line item? Did your salary statement that you submitted, that he reflected here, the original, it did show the change in pay for the one part-time moving to full-time secretary?
I believe it did, yes.
We need
But
to-
we didn't include that money. We took the part-time money that we were paying her and we just put that into full-time and then we eliminated that amount of money from the part-time.
Correct.
So it should be in there.
So there shouldn't be no addition there or deduction, so. So to that end, I think these numbers, then we are caught up, Bob. Thank you.
Okay.
I was looking at the wrong column.
I'm not missing anything here.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Do you have any other questions?
Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Probation?
Thank you. Amy.
I'm sorry?
No other further questions?
Nope.
Probation?
Good afternoon, Dave Hollinger with your probation department. I'm not sure if, in our discussions, I don't know if we're also including the court services as far as the discussion at this point.
We can do both. First, we probably start with general fund or.
Yeah, I mean, that's up to the chair, since we're being kind of slow on general fund. I don't know if we want to get plowed through it or not, but at least let's do the general fund here first.
Very good. With respect to the probation department and general funds, any increases in salary are based upon our obligations to fulfill the instruction from the Indiana Judicial Center as far as minimum salary for probation officers based on years of service. I'm grateful that last year, I guess, yes, it was last year that I was able to move one of the probation officer salaries into the general fund, given the fact that we were leaning very heavily on the probation user fee fund to help, in essence, fund salaried positions. We bounced back off the bottom of about $55,000. I apologize profusely for not sounding like the sky was falling, but it was getting pretty scary for me as far as the administrator, as far as how low we were getting in that probation user fee fund. That has bounced back up. We are using it to continue to fund salaried positions. I have 2 full-time positions, plus I have 5 part-time positions that are funded by way of the probation user fee fund. I'm not asking for at this time any additional probation staff or probation officers to be funded through the general fund. I have 2 vacant positions currently in this year's salary and wages statement. Down at the bottom, I have a comma 3 administrative assistant and another comma 3 administrative assistant. Both those are vacant. I'd like to keep my powder dry and hang on to those if I could, but I'm not, I don't anticipate having to fill those this year or next year. I do anticipate at some point probably asking for 1 or more of those positions to be filled by way of the continued increase in the dockets in Superior 4 and Superior 5. We see those collaterally, we see those as in they're individuals that come before Judge Zeman or Judge McVeigh, and they're asking for us to monitor their compliance. Sometimes it is at an administrative level, where it's not formal probation, but it's at an administrative level. Right now, we're able to handle that, but I can see those numbers increasing, as I think the prosecutor and Judge McVeigh have previously alluded. Are there any questions referenced the?
We did have a really small change there. Kirby had called me to start with about Lori leaving and Amber taking over, so that did, and I've lowered that $782.
Yes, if you, all the way down to the bottom under, it says intake community services, assistant court services. Lori Orlacher left to take another position outside of county, and we hired Amber Nichols. So her administrative position is picked up, thank you, under the probation, under my probation budget, even though she's working with in the front office of court services. She's their director of traffic at the front door of court services, along with others.
So that was $782, not a major thing, but $782.
Also, it's worth noting, I applied for the 3rd year for a Department of Corrections grant, and I was approved for fiscal year this year, 2019. It covers one of my newer probation officers, Brittany Graham. She's covered under Fund 9512, which is the Indiana Department of Corrections fund. It covers not all of her salary, but it covers a majority of it. The remainder we're picking up out of probation user fees. Also, it does help fund some additional services through Sentinel Services. We do drug screening, or have a contract with them for drug screening, and then we also have a contract with them for services, that being a kiosk. In effect, what's happening is I have a large number of individuals that are screened as low-risk offenders or administrative clients, and we're referring them over to the kiosk to free up my full-time probation officer staff so they can spend more time with moderate and high-risk offenders.
Dave, you're part-time in the general fund. You're requesting the same amount as you did last year.
Yes.
But through the end of August, you'd used 45% of their $54,000 allotment. Is that something that would continue, or is that, I mean, because we do have a lot to cut yet. Is there some little surplus in there that maybe you wouldn't need?
Hang on just a second, let me pull my numbers out here. Was that out of the, from the general fund, it was 54?
Yeah, you've used 40,000 each in 16 and 17, and now you're lined with not getting any more than 40.
But I'm hoping to keep that at 54,000. If indeed I use less than that, great. The reason I don't want to give that up is those are part-time employees that are down at our juvenile intake facility, and I'd have to answer to Judge Graham if I came up short on staffing down there.
But you have historically had a little bit of cushion, because you're not going to maybe have all of your full-time filled all the time, so you're going to have a little cushion. You could move down. I mean, just because I think the council's in a bind here, we're going to have to cut budgets, and it just seems like it's a little more than that. You could take some cut there.
Up about 150,000, isn't it? Isn't it about 150?
Well, the
It's 54 on part-time.
it's about $150,000 more in 19 than what you spent in 17.
What's the 150?
I think he's comparing like 2017 actual compared to the 19 request
For
for full-time.
Thank you, Shirley.
But now, 18, I think, got a new employee in it, I believe. Did 18 get a new employee out of the to the general? No, it didn't.
Yes.
Did it?
We rolled one off of the.
Okay, so that's what would move that 1.6 or 1.2 million up some to about 1.3 something.
Thank you to my fine colleague Shirley in HR. She pointed out that in my salary statement, I failed to include on the second page both the administrative part-time and also the probation officer part-time. And the salary statement is on the second page where it says rate of pay, and I failed to include that.
And you've given me one of those, so yeah, I think we're.
Well, I mean, yes, I think that needs to include.
Your part-time rate.
Yes, I'm sorry.
And I've got one of those
Okay.
now, so we're okay there.
I apologize for that error.
But your needed intake, there's been some vacancy there this year, is that correct?
I'm not sure that there's been a vacancy there. I'm guessing that it's probably it may be nothing more than a vacation, or someone may have come up ill for a short period of time. Unfortunately, I don't know exactly the answer to that question. I'm hoping, I project out that those 3 part-time employees cover for times when full-time staff's not there, and I anticipate that it's typically pretty close to 54,000 is our liability. Whether or not if it's down a little bit this year, good.
Being that we're at 40 each of the last 2 years, though, in that line item, is the question on, can we get between 40 and 50?
I would be happy to negotiate to 50 if I could.
You'd what?
I would be happy to offer up 50 if that would be of help.
So when you take 50 and back that into hours at the rate that you're paying, does that get you the hours that?
I unfortunately came up here without a calculator.
Yeah. Why don't we put it in at 50 and see run it and see what you got?
Certainly.
And we may need to do more, but I don't. Again, this is also it's going to be different than years past that we've got more cases coming through there too, since this is at intake, so. Mr. Chair, do you want to jump out of general fund and go over to court services or not? It's your choice.
We can, then we could pretty much finish Dave up if.
All right, yeah.
Would you like me to do that?
Okay, so a lot to talk about there, so.
59.
Court services, we continue to operate just as lean and mean as we can get on court services.
And this is page 59.
It's with excitement I mentioned that we have moved from our former home, that being the Tippecanoe County office building, second floor, where I'm sure the auditor's office misses seeing us on a daily basis just around the corner. We moved out of that office, which for 3 full-time and 1 part-time is about the size of a closet. But still, we're grateful that we had that space rent-free. With the great assistance from Commissioner Murtaugh and all this assistance from and help from the maintenance crew, we moved into the 4th floor into the prosecutor's office, the old prosecutor's office. I breathe a sigh of relief knowing that I'm not concerned, I don't lay awake at night worried about issues of confidentiality anymore. In that my 2 full-time staff, they're doing evaluations there, can go into their office and close the door, and I'm not concerned about other people that are waiting for an appointment, hearing what's going on. Please come visit us there. It's a grand office. In fact, the conference room, although it's kind of cold, the one that's on the, I guess that's the southwest corner, probably has the best view of any office. I'll put it up against any office in the courthouse. It is a spectacular office or conference room. So I have 2 full-time evaluators, Phil and Andrea, and then Amber Nichols, who's our secretary. We also have a part-time person we're paying out of the user fee funds, that being the court services funds. In addition to Phil and Andrea, we're currently paying Libby, who's our part-time administrator. We're currently paying her $11.50 an hour. I would like to propose that her wage be moved up to $13.50 an hour. That would be an additional $2 an hour. Again, as part-time, she's turned out to be an amazing part-time employee, doesn't want more than part-time at this point. I'd hate to lose her. In talking with both Phil and Andrea, they believe that the time that they would have to take to retrain somebody would be a challenge. Phil and Andrea both are pretty much working hand to mouth, meaning they're only earning money when they're doing evaluations rather than when they're sitting trying to train someone. We're not bringing in their revenue like we like to see. I would also mention that in February this year, we wrote a check out of our 511 fund, which was the Violence and Community Fund, and we repaid our non-loan $59,850. So that's down to zero. We have a little over $7,000 left in that fund. Just a little bit that trickles in every once in a while. We're no longer collecting, but it's on old cause numbers. So I would like to ask that you consider my meager request of increasing one of my part-time employees out of our user fund by $2 to $13.50 an hour.
And then you want an appropriation of $20,709.
Correct, thank you. It was, our request was $17,342. What I'm asking for you to consider is changing that appropriation to $20,709, and that would have an impact on the Social Security line. I'm sorry, I didn't calculate that out.
Mention your average net per month, Dave, if you would, and where that would put you if we did this.
Yeah, so right now, I went and ran the numbers on the last 6 months of the year. This is our revenue. January was almost 14,000. February was a little over 15. March was 21,000. April 19.5. May 19,000. June 17.3, and then July 9,000. So we drop off the why? Well, because I've got evaluators going on vacation. That's a good time of the year for us, in that it's tax time. The economy is pretty healthy. So for the first 6 months of the year, our average revenue was about $17.7 a month is what we were bringing in. We have, if I project out till through next year, even with the included hourly wage increase I'm proposing for our part-time employee, our liabilities are about $16.7, so we're looking at roughly $900 to $1,000 in the black each month. Some of those months are obviously going to be lower than others. Example being July, where we came in under $10,000 for the month. So it's going to be close. If I were running a Fortune 500 company, I'd be a little nervous about $1,000. It's not much of a buffer, but I'm confident that that is our part-time employee is worth that, and that we'll continue to plow through with the rate we are.
I have a question
Yes,
on
sir.
this substance abuse, mental health. Is there any way to benchmark this recidivism or improvements? Same customers coming back?
I would be the first to admit that some of our customers are frequent flyers.
They're what?
Frequent flyers. We frequently see them.
So they're coming back all the time?
Many of them are. Frankly, I have not. I have to figure out a way to track that, but I know some of these people almost by first name.
Who determines they're challenged?
The evaluators, they complete an evaluation on the individual, and at that time they determine based upon the charging offense. And many of the cases are coming out of Superior Court 6, which are your a misdemeanor and felony OWI cases. And based on the individual evaluation that's completed, the level of prior services, the level of, the blood alcohol level at the time of the offense. That then determines what level of intervention they're recommending, be it as some type of an educational program, whether or not they continue on for a more thorough evaluation at Wabash Valley, Sycamore Springs, one of the other providers.
Do we see these, your customers or whatever, or your people you treat, do we see these people showing up in any of these other departments? In Sheriff's Department, in the public, or in getting in trouble, community corrections?
Every one of them. There isn't a single individual that walks into court services that isn't ordered there by the court, meaning they've, one, had some kind of an interaction with the Sheriff's Department. Probably about 98% of it, well, more than that. Every one of them would have been processed through the jail, and then is either released on a bond or is held pending some previous or following hearing. And then, obviously, they find themselves in our court system.
But currently, what court services does, again, based on the reorganization of a few years back, all they are doing is the court-ordered assessments.
Yes, thank you. We're not, that's all we're doing. We're stripped to the bone. All they're doing is evaluations and making referrals out. We're not making a dime on any education, any community corrections, supervision, none of that.
And that's all statutory. That's the bare minimum that we can do.
That's correct. And then I frequently see those or oftentimes we'll see those individuals not only through court services, but then I can walk across or go down a couple flights into my office in the probation department, and lo and behold, I see them there.
So there's not much improvement. These people need help, and they're just getting evaluated. They're not really much improvement. They're just moving from one entity to the next entity that the taxpayer has to pay for.
Well, the rate of recidivism in substance abuse and or alcohol is substantial. I don't know what that number is. I don't think we're unique in our struggles with substance dependency or abuse in this community. And it's a huge recidivism rate. There's no doubt about it.
Great community to live in.
This is why, though, we are anticipating there will be new financial requests of us to not just keep doing what we've been doing, but put more mental health services and treatment. I know current and future candidates have talked of in-jail treatment, and there's a lot that's going to be expected of us to try to change this game going forward.
Yes, and I would, just on a side note, if tomorrow you completely defunded court services, I'd have a lot more time on my hands down in the probation office. I could do other things other than be working up there. But what you would find is that your court dockets would cease. They would come to a complete halt because the courts are obligated to try to find the best course of treatment for defendants, which includes, in many cases, evaluating where they're at as far as their substance abuse or their needs. And if we were to turn the number of individuals that court services evaluating off into the rest of the private sector, as in Wabash Valley, which is really, frankly, the only option we would have. Not that there are other providers, but if you don't have a gold standard as far as insurance goes, they're gonna say thanks for stopping by, and then you're gonna head off to Wabash Valley, up at 610 Main, the Alliance. They're just going to come to a complete stop also. Wabash Valley would just lock up. So we did give you just to give you a summary. I don't know if you want to know this or not, but as far as evaluations go, we completed, as in we charged for 77 evaluations in February, 77 January, 98 February, 122 in March, 105 in April, 125 in May, 79 in June. Again, that was a month where some of our staff was taking some breaks as far as vacation goes. So they're running pretty much full blast. Unfortunately, I do need to have them taking time to do the paperwork that is the backside of the evaluations. Complete the documents, enter in information in the database, score risk assessments. Those take time. Right now, they're working, double booking on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and typically on Monday and Friday are the days that they're doing all the associated paperwork and reporting compliances to the courts or filing non-compliance reports with the courts. So I'm just asking that you consider allowing me to use additional monies out of the user fee fund for court services to offset a pay increase to one of our skilled and quite valuable part-time employees.
And it does not look like you're going to be cutting into your cash balance to do that.
No,
I would guess your revenue is going to exceed your budget for 19. That's what it looks like
that's
to
what,
me.
certainly what I anticipate. I know that we were right at 100 and we actually backed up a little bit in the month of July because we had vacation, and so we didn't have quite the revenue coming in. I think we actually had to dip into our fund by about $3,000, I think.
But at some point, we will move. I assume the victims and community money will be moved up into the substance abuse, and so
I don't know.
You've got about 10,000 there.
Is that what it was? I was talking with our clerk, and she indicated that we had collected about $6,700 for the year in that violence and community fund, which has been winding down for some time now. I'm happy to hear that we have 10,000 in the fund.
So that would put you over 100,000 in.
Collectively,
so, so you got, that's still not a lot of money, but it's a cushion at least that we didn't have a couple of years ago.
Yes, and again, I'm asking them to do a lot, and I expect that they will, and they will continue to do so. They're just grateful that they have accommodations other than one small office to share. Any other questions?
Any further questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
It's 4:25.
See anyone here?
Want to try to do magistrate, or we want to?
Magistrate's pretty straightforward. There's no changes in people, and as you can see, he's reduced the lower line items, so.
Jason's got.
Oh, okay.
They didn't put a pay raise in for there?
Oh, they didn't.
On the magistrate, it should be 92,738. If you notice, that's the same salary as what we had for 18 that they put in for 19.
I had the answer to the CIP question if you wanted to address that now or if you want to still wait until tomorrow.
Thank you, by the way, Bob. Okay, got that.
Good catch.
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
So the CIP, how that works is we have a case manager that facilitates that. They call the clerk's office. I was mistaken. She calls the clerk's office, finds out what they owe in back fees. That money is then paid directly to that agency that they owe back fees by the participant through a money order. We don't collect it. It's paid directly to that agency or to that department through the individual. We don't have anything to do with it other than facilitating what they owe and keeping track of it. I don't know if that helps clarify that question or not.
So when you say to that department, what do you mean?
So either to court services, I'm sorry, yes, court services, probation, or us. So if they owe us back fees, then their paycheck, they get a money order to that, and then they would pay us directly. If they owe court fees, then it would go to that court, and they would pay those fees just like they would if they were out on the street doing it. We just help facilitate that through a case manager that keeps track of it and organizes that for them. So it's money coming back in. We don't handle it directly. We just help facilitate it through case management and through keeping sure that they have the amounts that they owe.
Unless it's through probation.
So I don't know if that clarifies or muddies the waters at all, but that's how we do it.
So then by design, those fees weren't designed to necessarily offset the ankle bracelet cost?
No,
Yeah.
those are designed to get them out of debt, get them out of the jail, and get the fees that they owe to the county paid off. That's the design of the program.
Could some of that money be included in the court collection fees, that just the court fees that they're turning into us? Could that be?
I'm sorry?
Christmas coming up here, but I just wondered if some of the fees that, we don't have anything that's going in the general fund that's, designated from community corrections, but is it somehow included in some of the court fees?
It would be in the monthly transmittal that my office does because Carrie at Community Corrections contacts Kirby in probation, who does probation and court services, and me about court fees. And so we respond back with what they owe to the county. We get that money, so it would be, that all would be included in what I send over from the
So
clerk.
some is
and they
going to
send
the
over
general
from
fund, it's just not
It's just not
designated
tracked that
community
way.
corrections, okay.
Correct.
Going around.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's probably a very convoluted way to get to work.
Yeah.
We don't
Scenic
have
route.
potential for an additional fee for community corrections as it is what we're saying.
Right.
Right, these are
We're
just all
getting-
back fees that have already been accrued and owed to the various departments that we're trying to get paid off.
But because you've got conditions, they've got to get those fees
Yes.
cleared before they pass out of you.
And before they move to what we call regular program of just regular work release, where we start collecting daily fees and that sort of thing.
Right.
Yes. So, if that answered your question.
Thank you.
Thanks.
If it's not quite 4:30, want to do 4D, Commissioner?
I'm done.
Is it good?
We're good for today.
No, the 4D is good?
4D's good as it is.
Well, again, I don't have a pay
Okay.
change for that appointed official. That was the same. So I think that needs to be 64,260.
260.
What page is
28.
Yeah.
Part-time.
We clear? We done?
Yeah, I don't have.
Let's go to circuit court.
No change in head count here. The one item you may wonder about is, first item, pauper. They're running at 23,000 through half the year, but with the outstanding bills they've got coming, they're going to hit a number that's going to look a lot like 75 for next year. By the way, our total, I did run a number of all the courts, including 3 and 6, or 3 in CASA. The request that we have for pauper is $389,000. Through half the year, we've spent $399,000. So we know that adding some PDs is going to relieve, but it isn't going to eliminate by any stretch of the imagination. And that includes that 389 requested in total includes this 75. And just seeing where we are, again, I think that we're still going to be short, but we're going to be less short than we've been like this year. So I would suggest that we don't change that 75 request for circuit. I'm sorry, yeah, 75 requests for circuit. The psych evaluations, Judge Person said if we're pushed, we can pull that down. They're paying $400 for these evaluations. He, like others, knows these are increasing. He's only spent $900 through the year, but feels like he's likely going to get there. But I'd say for good measure, we can take that to 4,000. You okay with that?
Yes.
I mean, it's likely going to get used, but. And then jury expense, even though he's not had much yet this year, he's got 1 jury trial scheduled per month for the remainder of the year. So we're likely going to get to the 23 number for 2018, which is what he's requested for 19.
Anything else with circuit? Want to try Superior Court 1?
We did
We did that this
We did
morning.
that this morning.
Oh, that's right, yeah. We did that. That's right, we did that earlier. Superior Court 2.
We did 2 this morning.
Yeah.
Me too.
Did we do 3 already?
No.
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 Did we do 2?
He just came in front of us, we didn't.
Well, yeah.
We didn't do his budget.
We didn't do his budget, no.
He just came in front of us.
Yeah. Do we need to go back to 2?
We'll do the court 2?
We did it
2.
with Judge Meyer this morning.
He
did.
wasn't here for budget hearing.
He was here for the council.
He was here for council, he wasn't here for budget.
becoming a blur, I
A
know.
mind is a terrible thing to waste.
Mine's becoming mush real fast.
Whatever.
We did 1 and 5.
Yes,
Do
I'm so
three
sorry.
Easily. We only
We,
have one change in 3.
You're in
You wanna
3,
do
up to
that?
3?
Did you have anything to change in 2?
yeah, 2, let me go back. I'm having to split between 2 spreadsheets here, sorry.
What do you say, Roland?
We did not have any changes in Judge Meyer. He mentioned it this morning. He has done a great job in cross-training and shifting funds as needed before coming to us for appropriations.
Set her
So if anything, we should consider, well, I think we're going to be right there. He had a request, obviously, today for pauper, and he was already at 42,000 through half the year before today's appropriation. So his estimate of 50, if anything, is going to be low, but we agree that we'd keep it at that. So we didn't have any other changes on court. Is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's listed in there as 40.
I can't hear him.
They're suggesting we change it to 50.
Hear him down there.
Well,
No, I
what I
can't.
have in the spreadsheet we worked off of for pauper,
Harper, we should have 40.
It
Says 40.
for 2. I'm sorry, I was looking at 4.
Yes, we're in 2.
I just cited the 4 numbers, but the 2 numbers are similar. They've already spent half of that for the year, so that's a reasonable
We haven't done.
change.
we're not doing
Apologize.
that now, are we?
I don't know what we're on. I think
What
we're
are
still-
we
on
on?
2?
Superior.
We're on 2.
Right. We can't hear down here.
I will speak louder. We're on 2. I was speaking, though, to some of the 4 line items. I got off a line there.
All right.
3165. Transcripts.
This is the question that we're going to decide whether that 75 that's currently an ancillary is going to reside here or up there.
Right.
Right now, it's
The
an ancillary,
request is
so
for
this should be 0.
218.
Okay, so the original spreadsheet that I got had that, which was the transcription error that I had mentioned earlier. We know that's not true. That was just, that came from we don't know where. Because we asked Judge Meyer about that, and he didn't know anything about it. So we were like, what the heck are you doing? He's like, nothing. So
Okay.
so that's going to either be 75, either here or an ancillary.
Okay.
So the 218 goes away?
Yeah, I
218.
didn't know that still, that wasn't in the spreadsheet you
wasn't.
sent.
It's not on
218,
here.
yeah, we got a total in there instead, yeah.
Okay. It's in the book, though, is what you're saying, it's printed still?
Printed in my book.
Yeah,
proper
so-
Transcripts.
Yeah, but take that out.
Crossed out.
That was the first version of the book, or the 5th version by that time. wasn't it?
We can get through the last couple.
Okay, we done for today?
Mr. Chairman, in the interest of,
Well, what,
Sanity.
you going to adjourn? I'd like to know what time we're going to be back tomorrow. We decided?
8:30.
8:30.
8:30?
Not that it matters that much. It's technically a recess,
Recess.
I think.
What time?
Recess.
8:30.
Recess.
We're going to recess for,
I move that recess until 8:30 a.m. tomorrow.
sounds great. Thank you.
Can we leave our stuff?
Yeah, can we leave our
I
stuff
think
here?
there's nobody in this room that